Hello guys, welcome to M21 limited set review. Today we're covering blue. I'm gonna go through all the cards in M21 that are on the blue color, obviously, and I'm gonna talk a bit about them and then I'm gonna give them a grade. But pay attention, even though the grade is a great guide to the power level of the card, it doesn't cover the whole deepness of the effect the card has on the game. So what I'm saying about a card might be more important than just the plain grade. Okay, let's start. First off, we have Barin, Tolarian Archmage, which is a 3 mana legendary creature. It's a 2/2 in stats. When enters the battlefield, return up to one target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. You can bounce their stuff, you can bounce your own stuff. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent was put into your hand, so only if you return one of your permanents to your hand, then you draw a card. I would give Barin a 7 because the potential is there. If you return something, you draw a card, and maybe you have some enter the battlefield effect, which might help you. It's flexible because it can return stuff your opponent has. But it's no bomb, and it's not a card that I would probably first pick in a draft. Next up, we have Cancel, the classic counter, 3 mana counter any spell. Uh, I would give this one a 6, but usually the power level of a cancel depends a lot on the format. Uh, it's good sometimes, it's even better in the right deck, but it's nothing too shiny, I'd say. Next up we have Capture Sphere, 4 mana, you know this one from Ikoria already. Flash, which is relevant, it enchants a creature, it taps that creature when enters the battlefield, and that creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Now this is a great removal. The only problem with it is that the creature is still on board. It can maybe untap, or it can be used as fodder to some sacrifice effects or whatnot. So it sometimes doesn't really get rid of the creature, but most of the time it does. I would give this one a 7.5. It's a good removal and something that a blue deck will actively look to play. Discontinuity. This is really interesting. This is really interesting. So for 6 mana instant at Mythic Rare, as long as it's your turn, this spell costs 4 less. That's the first line of text. So on your turn, this costs only 2. On your opponent's turn, it costs 6. It says end the turn. End the turn, what does that mean? So exile all spells and abilities from the stack, including discard. The player whose turn it is discards down to the maximum size, and the damage wears off this turn and until end of turn effects end. So it's exactly what it says. Yeah, end the turn. Nothing more happens that turn. You just discard to the maximum hand, and then everything wears off. During your turn, this is going to be a 2 mana counter spell for whatever instant flash creature they play. During their turn, you're going to pay 6 mana and maybe counter one of their spell, or you can just go ahead and play this one during their upkeep, and then their turn ends and you basically get an extra turn. It's an interesting effect. I think it's gonna be very impactful on constructed. I'm not sure about limited. It's not such a huge bomb, but I would still give this one a 7.5. Next up we have Enthralling Hold, 5 mana for an enchantment aura, so it enchants a creature. You control enchanted creature, but you can't choose an untapped creature as this spell's target as you cast it. This is an interesting layout here for the text. So the creature that you target has to be tapped, but if there's an effect that untaps the creature, it doesn't matter because Enthralling Hold only cares about the creature being tapped when you choose it as a target, when you cast this enchantment. So if you manage to tap your opponent's creature, it's very good. Or if they attack, you still their biggest attacker, but you have to make sure you can afford to take that damage from their creature before you steal it. And then there might be some creatures that just don't attack that you might want to steal. So, but I guess usually those kind of creatures tap for something anyway. So I think it's a pretty good card. Stealing something, it's very good in terms of card advantage, because yeah, you spend the card, but you take their creature. It's a removal, and then you remain with something, kind of a 2-for-1. I would give this one an 8, and I look forward to play this card if I am blue. Next up we have Frantic Inventory. Draw a card for 2 mana, instant. Draw a card and draw cards equal to the number of cards named Frantic Inventory in your graveyard. Uh, I think this was played in Legacy or something, or at least something similar to this one. I think the card that was played in Legacy was drawing cards equal to the number of cards named that way from all the graveyards. Uh, the first one is just gonna be 2 mana cycling, and the second one is gonna be a 2 mana divination, which is pretty good already, especially since it's instant speed. Once you have more than 2, this is gonna be a great tool for your deck. So I would only grade this one as a 5.5, because alone it's just a filler. It just thins your deck, that's all it does. But once you get more than one copy, it becomes okay. I don't know if playing a divination for 2 justifies playing a 2 mana cycler in your deck, but once you have 3 of those, I think it's pretty good. The the skill cap here, the ceiling, I think it's pretty high. It's probably not a card for limited, but it can be useful in the right deck in limited, especially if you can get your hands on multiples. And probably you're gonna be able to do that, because those are gonna table pretty often, I can imagine. Next up we have Frost Breath. This is a classic one. 3 mana for an instant that taps up to 2 target creatures, and those creatures don't untap during their control's next untap step. So if you want to attack, you play this one. You tap their creatures, they don't tap, and then you get to attack again. If you're on the defense, before their combat, you tap their creatures. Uh, it's your turn. You pass the turn. Those creatures still don't attack for another turn, so it's a great tempo. It's good whether you want to survive more, whether you want to finish up games faster. 3 mana instant speed. This is a premium cost for this kind of effect, and I really like Frost Breath. Now, it's true that sometimes it doesn't do anything because you can't pressure them, but at least it buys you time. So I would give this one a 7, and it might be even it might be worth even more than that. It depends on the format a bit, but 7, 7.5. This is a very good card, I think. Ghostly Pilferer. Whenever Ghostly Pilferer becomes untapped, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. So if you attack with this guy and it survives, you can pay 2 mana and it draws a card, but you have to pay it next turn and you have to pay it before you draw a card. So you most of the times you'll not be sure if you should pay 2 mana for this effect. Then whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card. This is not something that's gonna happen in limited that often. I'm not even sure if there's a way to do that in this format. Uh, so this is a constructed consideration mostly. And then discard a card. Ghostly Pilferer can't be blocked this turn. So you can discard a land or whatnot to make this guy unblockable, and then you can be sure to it survives and you can pay 2 mana to draw another card. It's interesting. It's kind of a looter, but it's not a great one. It hits for 2, but you have to discard something. I would just give this one a 6.5, but it's an interesting card, and it has some power level up to it, I guess. Next up we have Jeskai Elder. Now this 2-drop I really like. This is a reprint from Khans of Tarkir. It's a 1/2 2-drop with prowess. In case you forgot, prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it goes on the stack. Keep that in mind. So whenever Jeskai Elder deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and if you do discard a card, it loots. It's a great one. It's a great one because there's always going to be a threat of activation. If Jeskai Elder is attacking, it has 1/2, and if you cast an instant, it becomes a 2/3. So they're not going to be able to block with their 2/2 2-drops. And if they don't block, you get to loot. And then maybe you can cast multiple spells. There are 1 mana spells in the format. There's Opt, and there's spells throughout. I think every single color has at least one 1 mana instant. I really like the card, and I would give this one a 7.5. I think it's that good. I really think it's that good. It's gonna be a threat in combat. Whether it blocks or attacks, you're not going to know what's going to happen. Next up we have Keen Glide Master, another 2-drop, 2/1 in stats. For 3 mana target creature gains flying. 2 mana 2/1, it's not great because it dies to the 1/3 2-drops. But the ability is not that bad, especially in the late game. You can make some big creature fly and maybe become unblockable thus. I would give Keen Glidemaster a 6 because it's okay at 2 mana and it has some application in the late game. Library Larcanist, 3 mana 1/2. When it attacks you draw a card. Now I like that you draw the card immediately after you attack, but this is just a 1/2, so it's probably not going to survive to attack again. So basically you just cycle this card for 3 mana most of the times. If you can manage to clear their board and this attack, have this one attack multiple times, it can be a good source of card advantage. But I would only give this one 5.5 as it stands. Now, of course, with every card you can build a bit around them, and as I said, the grades are not exactly the power level, do not reflect exactly the power level of the cards. In specific situations and scenarios, cards can perform way different than their grade reflects it. Next up we have Lofty Denial. It's an instant for 2 mana, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1, and if they have a flyer, unless their controller pays 4. I kind of like this card. It's good early when they tap to play something. And blue is gonna have a decent amount of flyers. Also, if you play blue-white, you're gonna have even more flyers. So playing this as a counter if they pay, unless they pay 4, it's pretty easy to enable, and then it becomes very good. I would give this card a 6.5. I think it's slightly better than a cancel in a deck, but it's still a counter spell, and generally only specific decks want counter spells. You have to build your deck in a specific manner. Miscast, instant for 1 mana, another counter spell. This one counters only instants and sorceries unless their controller pays 3. Now this one, because it's 1 mana, I think it's even better than the previous counter spell. 3, it's a pretty high cost, and it's easy to catch your opponents off guard. If they pay like 5 mana for a removal or something, and you just miscast it, it's gonna be a huge tempo advantage. I would give this one a 7, and I think I would play multiples in my deck if I have the occasion. It's an uncommon, so. Next up we have Mistral Singer. It's a 2/2 for 3 mana, flying, and prowess. This might be the best common in blue. Like really, 3 mana, 2/2 for a flyer. I think it's maybe above average. It's classic for a flyer, but in the economy of the game, it's better than an average card. And it has prowess. Like, this can hit for way more than 2 in a turn. And this is very hard. Any creature with prowess is gonna be very hard to block. I really like this card, and I think it's gonna be an early pick most of the time. If you see this one like a third pick, it might be a signal that blue is open, that the guys to your right don't play blue. Now, I have to admit I'm not sure. It might be that I over-evaluated this card, but it's at least a 7.5. I give it an 8 anyway. I think it's very good. I look forward to play this one and pick it early. Next we have Opt. 1 mana, scry 1, draw a card. This is a favorite, yeah. It found its home in so many decks throughout multiple formats. It's basically free to play it. I think I will play Opt probably every time I'm playing blue. And if you have multiples of those, you can also, I guess, cut some lands. Maybe, I don't know, if you can get like 3 Opts, maybe you can go 15 lands. I like the effect, I like that it's cheap, I like that it triggers prowess, very important, and we're going to see there's a card especially, there's the rare that goes perfectly with Opt. I will give Opt a 7, just because like it doesn't really impact the game in a direct way, but it's very good, and probably you're not gonna cut this one most of the time. Next we have Pursued Whale. I really like the flavor on this card. I think it's a great flavor, probably the best flavor in the set. Also a unique effect. It's expensive. It's 7 mana for an 8/8. At least you get the stats. And then when Pursued Whale enters the battlefield, each opponent creates a 1/1 red pirate creature token with. This creature can't block, and creatures you control attack each combat if able. And then spells your opponents cast the target Pursued Whale costs 3 more to cast, so this is hard to get rid of. They create a pirate that forces them to attack next turn. So you're gonna be able to kill something. If they don't have a removal for Pursued Whale, this one is gonna eat one of their creatures. Probably not the pirate, because you want them to attack every single turn. If this is not eating something, they still have the pirate that forces them to attack. So if you have some other creatures, you still can eat their creatures. So their combat, it's probably gonna be shit after you play Pursued Whale. And it's hard. It's pretty expensive too. You have to pay 3 more to kill this 8/8. So I imagine you're gonna need to pay like 8 mana or 7 mana to kill this one most of the times. I also like the flavor that this is the Pursued Whale. When it appears, pirates appear, and the pirates just don't stop. Uh, they don't care about defending. They can't block, and they attack each turn if able, each combat if able, and they just don't stop pursuing the Pursued Whale, right? I like the card. I will give it a 7.5. It's an interesting effect. I'm not really sure how this is going to play, but I like it. Next we have Reign of Revelation. This is a nice one. 4 mana for an instant, draw 3, discard 1. You can ditch something that you don't want, and then it's basically draw 3. It's an instant. This is very important. And the drawback is just not there. You don't lose life. You don't. 4 mana, it's more than reasonable cost for this effect. I think this could be a 5 mana spell and still be decent at least. I really like it. I think it's a great signal that blue is open. So yeah, if you see this one, third pick, I'm pretty sure blue is open. I will give this one a 7.5. In case you didn't fasten your seal belts, you should do it right now, because this is gonna take some time. We only covered 14 cards already. Read the Tide, 6 mana sorcery. Choose one, draw 3 cards, and return. Uh, Either draw 3 cards, sorry, or return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. This is very expensive. This is 6 mana to draw 3 cards. You can go ahead and play Reign of Revelation to draw basically 3, because you're probably gonna discard something that you don't need most of the times. Here you pay 6 mana and it's sorcery. And the other effect, return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. This one might be slightly better, but we have Frost Breath in the format, which, while it doesn't return them to their hand, the creatures don't untap for 2 turns. They don't untap during 1 upkeep, but you can play it such that they are disabled for 2 turns. This is kind of both cards, but at a way more expensive cost. I don't really like the card. I think the cost, it's just too big to be a good one. But if you can manage, if you can afford to pay 6 mana on your turn, the payoff is there. Yeah, the payoff is there. I will only give it a 5.5. It's kind of a filler, uh, but maybe slightly more than that. But sometimes you can't afford to put this one on the 6 drop. Rewind. 4 mana instant counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. So how would it be to cast this one, counter something, untap 4 lands, and then play the draw 3, discard 1? That would be great. That would be a great combo. It's the 4th counter spell, I think, in the set for blue. I will give this one a 6.5. This kind of effect, like, sometimes was good, sometimes may be bad. I'm not sure, but it's decent. It's a 6.5. It can be a huge tempo in the right deck. I mean, before that one was good, this one. You need to make sure that those 4 lands that you are untapping, you do something with them. Because if you only play this one as a 4 mana counters, as a 4 mana cancel, it's not going to be that great. You need to be able to do something with the lands that you untap, and then it becomes great. Riddle form, 2 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you can have this one become a 3/3 Sphinx flyer in addition to its other types. And for 3 mana, you scry 1. I like that you have the option to scry there. That's gonna be pretty useful, because if you don't have what to do with your mana, you can scry, and you can do it even multiple times. In the late game, it's gonna be pretty great to do that, especially when you blank your draw with a land. And then it becomes a 3/3 flyer when you cast a non-creature spell. It goes perfectly in decks with prowess. So not only you have to worry about their prowess, you have to worry about this 3/3 enchantment that can become a creature if they cast something. It's also good on the offense. It's a 3/3 flyer at 2 mana. So I will give this one a 6.5, just because you need to cast something before it becomes a creature. But the upside is definitely there, and I can imagine this card maybe being a 7 in the right deck. Next up we have Roaming Ghostlight, 5 mana 3/2 flyer. When enters the battlefield, return target non-spirit, if that matters, to its owner's hand. Again, you can return their creatures, you can return your own creatures. This one also triggers the rare that we covered earlier, Barin, Tolarian Archmage, because if you return one of your creatures with this one and you have Barin on board, you're gonna draw another card. You can also bounce between those two and draw a card every now and then. You can out-tempo your opponents. You maybe return some big creature they have to their hand. You can return something enchanted with Capture Sphere. There's so many options on this card. I will give this one a 7. Yeah. Pay attention that you need to return something. So if they don't have a creature, you're... Oh, actually no, sorry. Return up to one target. Okay, so you don't actually need to return something. I'll give this one a 7. I think it's pretty good. Rookie Mistake. 1 mana instant. Until end of turn, target creature gets +0/+2 and another target creature gets -2/-0. So this is gonna protect 2 of your creatures, one by increasing its toughness, one by decreasing the opposing creature attack. It's 1 mana and can protect 2 creatures. The upside is there. It's also great with prowess. Pay attention to all those cheap instants in decks with prowess. Their value is gonna be way higher. Now I'm not sure about this one because it might be pretty narrow when you can actually use its effect, but I might be wrong. I will give this one just a 5.5. It might be a 6, and in the right deck it might be even more than that. Rousing Reed. 3 mana enchantment aura enchants a creature. When enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards and then discard a card. And the creature gets +1/+1 and flying. I like the fact that this enchantment replaces itself with that draw 2, discard 1. And it's also not just draw 1, it's draw 2. So that's great. You discard something, but you can ditch something that you don't need. And then also the creature gets +1/+1 in stats. Okay, not that much, but it's the minimum you can get, kind of. And it has flying, which is relevant, yeah, because it's gonna be harder to block. Just pay attention then that if your opponent has an instant speed removal, it can remove the creature you're putting this enchantment onto, and then you just don't replace the enchantment, you 2/1 yourself. So that's the only issue. But if they are tapped and you play this, it's okay. That means it's better than other enchantments, but it's still an enchantment. I will only give this one a 6. It might be worth more than that. It might be worth more than that. Like, it's interesting to have draw to discard 1 on an enchantment. Next we have Sanctum of Calm Waters. This is the blue shrine. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may draw X cards, where X is the number of shrines you control, and then if you do, discard a card. It's interesting that this effect triggers at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. Now, the white shrine was pretty bad because you needed to pay like 6 mana to tap a creature if you had only 1 shrine. If you have only this one on board, you're gonna loot once each turn, which is not bad. The problem is it costs 4 mana and you're not going to do anything that turn because it triggers at the beginning of your pre-combat. So you're gonna play it and wait 1 turn before it loots once. It's not great, but I guess if you manage to play this one early enough, it's okay even if you only have this single shrine. Once you have 2 shrines, though, once you have 2 shrines, this is very good. You're going to draw 2 cards each turn and select one of them, or maybe keep them both and discard something else. I like the fact that you only need 2 shrines for this to work, but it's not something like boom. But it's gonna be very good if you have at least another shrine, or if you play the shrine deck. We're gonna cover that once we get to the multicolored cards. I will give this one a 6. The upside is there. It's definitely there, but you need to have time to play this one. You need to work a bit and have an answer deck, I guess. Next we have See the Truth. So this is a sorcery. It's basically an anticipate at the beginning. So you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. Just that it's a sorcery. And if this spell was cast from anywhere other than your hand, put each of those cards into your hand instead. I don't think there is a way to cast this one in the format, in the limited format, so that ability is only for constructed, where it might be pretty good. So look at the top 3 cards. It's an anticipate, but at sorcery speed, which I kind of dislike. Uh, but it's fine. I'm still gonna give this one a 5.5. Next, we have Shacklegeist. 2 mana, 2/2 flyer. Shacklegeist can block only creatures with flying. Tap 2 and tap spirits you control. Tap target creature you don't control. 2 mana for a 2/2 flyer. Yes, please. It can only block creatures with flying. Okay, fine. It's not like it's going to block anything else unless you are in a bad spot. Tap 2 spirits you control. Tap something you don't control. Might come in handy from time to time. There are some spirits in blue, but I don't think it's like a theme. It's not as populated. The format is not as populated by spirits as it is by dogs and cats, I think. Still, I'm going to give this one a 7.5 because it's a 2 mana 2/2 flyer, right? It's good in if you go aggressive. Shipwreck Dowser, 5 mana 3/3 prowess. Prowess on a 3/3 5 drop. And when enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. It's good. It's very good card. You return something. The only problem with this one is that it costs 5 mana, and you know, you can't play that many cards that are 5 mana or more. You need to select them a bit. But this one is a good one. And prowess on a 3/3, like the stats are already okay. And once you cast a spell, it's a 4/4. Once you cast 2 spells, it's a 5/5. Also, again, I repeat, prowess. There's the threat of activation. People are not going to block those creatures every time, because what if you have that instant sorcery? Then their block might be terrible, so they might prefer just to take the damage. And also, this one returns an instant. Can return an instant from your graveyard. So the opponent, yeah, they're going to know you have it, and they're not going to block it again. Very good card, I think. I will give this one a 7. Next we have Spined Megalodon, 7 mana, 5/7 hexproof. Whenever Spined Megalodon attacks, scry 1. It's a hexproof on a 5/7. Yeah, it's an expensive one. 7 mana, it's a lot. But it has hexproof. You're not going to be able to deal with this one that easy. And Spined Megalodon attacks, scry 1. Yeah. I think it's a fine card. It's a very nice top curve, but it's 7 mana. You can't really play multiple of those. So it's not gonna be a high pick. I will only give this one a 6.5, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be very annoying once it hits the board. Like, how do you get rid of a 5/7 without flying, without just dodging it? It's gonna be very hard. Next we have Stormwing Entity, and this is the one that it's very good with Opt, because this one costs 3 less to cast if you've cast an instant or sorcery. So that means it's a 2-drop if you cast an Opt before. Yeah. It's a flyer, a 3/3 flyer. It has prowess. Wow. And when enters the battlefield, you scry 2. Man, this card, it's only upside. All, even if you pay 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer with prowess that scries 2 and hits the board, it's still great. And if you cast an Opt, you can play this one on your turn 3. That's busted. That's literally busted. Man, unbelievable. Uh, I'm going to give this card an 8.5. Don't get me wrong, this is a bomb. The only thing is that while it has all the upsides, it's not an answer, and it's pretty easy to be answered. It might be a 9, I don't know. I will give this one an 8.5, but I think it's very good. Like, it's probably the best card thus far in the format. It's thus far, I mean, I only covered white and blue. It's definitely the best blue card we've covered so far. Next we have Sublime Epiphany. There's another one that might be even better than the previous one. This has so many options. It's a 6 mana instant that says choose one or more. There's 5 options. You can't really choose all of them because it's I mean, technically you can, but it's not gonna happen most of the time. So it's counter target spell, counter target activated or triggered ability, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and target player draws the card. There are 5 modes. You can choose 5 modes technically. Probably you're gonna choose like ideally you want to choose 4, like counter something and then return something, copy something and draw a card. I think more realistically is that you're going to use 3 modes. It's easy to play around because, like, boom, I just keep 6 mana up. What am I going to play? Uh, but it does so many, man. It does so many. This is the first pick. Uh, First pick, definitely. I will give this one a 9. This is a bomb. Does so many things. Like, having so many options, it's busted. And next, we have Teferi's Ageless Insight. If you would draw a card, except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. Now again, you can't really have too many effects like this one, because you pay 4 mana for this legendary enchantment and it does nothing when you play it. But then, if you draw a card, except the one that you draw, the first one you draw during your draw step, you just draw 2 instead. So if you have time to play your card draw, you're gonna draw all the cards. It's kind of a win more, but I think it's very powerful. Like, once you play this one, you're gonna have the card advantage. I imagine you're gonna play this one once you have a lot of card draw in the deck, so that's why I say it might be a win more situation, but who doesn't love just drawing more cards? Okay, next we have Teferi's Tutelage. No, sorry. Teferi's Protege first. That's a 3 mana 2/3, 2 mana tap, draw a card, then discard a card. It's a looter, it's 3 mana. 2/3 are not too great stats, but are not terrible in this format, I think. There are a lot of 2 drops with 2 toughness. So it's okay. Looting for 1 is a nice effect to have. It can win you the late game pretty easily. Sometimes it's gonna require an answer or you run away with the game. I'll give this one a 6 because it's a 3 mana looter, but it's a fine card. Teferi's Tutelage, 3 mana enchantment. When Teferi's Tutelage enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2 cards. So they're going to mill 2 cards after you play this one, but just paying 3 mana for a loot, I don't like it. It's kind of a build around because if you play this one and you kind of slow down the game and just draw cards and stuff like that, you're gonna mill your opponent's deck because it's only 40 cards. How hard can be to mill it? But it's situational. It goes in a specific deck. If mill, it's a deck is gonna play this one. I like the fact that they finally added the mill keyword on cards. I will only give this one a 5. It's just a filler, and I just give it a 5 because the upside is there. They're going to mill 2 cards every turn. They're going to mill on your draw step. Teferi, Master of Time. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time on any player's turn. Anytime you could cast an instant. This is a new one to have on a Planeswalker. 4 mana, 3 loyalty. And then the abilities are +1, draw a card, discard a card, so it loots. -3, target creature you don't control phases out. That means treat it and anything attached to it as though they don't exist until its controller's next turn. Okay, okay. And -10, take 2 extra turns after this one. I don't know. I'm not that excited about this card. I think it's gonna be a bomb in constructed, but I'm not sure about its use in limited. It's still a planeswalker. It's still gonna be good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's that planeswalker bomb that you are so afraid of. It's gonna be hard to deal with. True. And I suppose you're gonna be able to activate the abilities on your turn once and then twice, a second time on your opponent's turn, which is great. I will give Teferi an 8.5. It's a hard to evaluate card, I think, because I don't remember having a Planeswalker that can activate its abilities during your opponent's turn. You can also activate this -3 in response to something. It's gonna be interesting. So next we have Tide Skimmer. 4 mana flyer, 2/3. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures with flying, draw a card. Nice. It has flying, so it only needs another flyer to attack, and then you draw a card. It's a 2/3, 3 toughness, so it's gonna be pretty tough in combat. I like the card. I will give this one a 7. Tolarian Kraken, 6 mana for a 4/6. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. When you do, you may tap or untap target creature. Now, the effect is pretty good. During your draw step, you're gonna be able to pay 1, which is as low as you can get in terms of mana, to tap or untap something. The trouble is that you cannot pay that mana on their opponent's turn to tap an attacker, only if you have some draw card effect. And this is a 6 drop for 4/6. The stats are there, are okay, nothing too busted. It's an okay card, but probably you're gonna cut it a hefty amount of time. I'm gonna give this one a 6.5 still, because the ability is interesting and you can use it once each turn during your turn. Tome Anima, 4 mana 3/3. Tome Anima can't be blocked as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. During your turn, you're only gonna need to play an opt or like draw another card during your opponent's. It doesn't matter because it's about being blocked. So having a 3/3, if you can reliably make this one unblockable, it's gonna be a good clock on your opponent. But drawing cards does not come that easy, I suppose. I will only give this one a 6. Unsubstantiate, 2 mana instant, return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. Okay, unsummon at 1, that also can get rid of some removals maybe. It's a tempo play, definitely. It's gonna be pretty good in aggressive creature decks, so maybe blue-white flyers or something. I'm gonna give this one a 6. Vodalian Arcanist, 2 mana for a 1/3, kind of a mana dork, yeah, so this one adds colorless if you tap it, but only for instants and sorcery. 2 mana 1/3, it's great. It's pretty good for control decks that want this extra mana and want a body that just holds their attackers. At 1/3, it's gonna be able to do just that, block their 2-drop, and then it can ramp you up a bit and help you retain control of the board and of the game and whatnot. I gave this one a 6. It might be even a 6.5. I kind of like the card, to be honest. Probably more like a 6.5. We'll see. We'll see how the format shapes up. Waker of Waves, 7 mana for a 7/7. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-0, and then 2 mana, discard Waker of Waves. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other one into your graveyard. That's a cycling effect, but you look at two cards and you discard one of them, so it's a better cycling. I will give this one a 6 because it's nice to have that option of cycling this card away. Otherwise, 7 mana for a 7/7, it's not great. Creatures your opponent control get -1/-0. That's a good effect, but it comes at a very expensive cost. Yeah, so once again, 6 mana. I like the card because you can cycle it. I like cycling, it's my favorite mechanic. And this one is an even better cycling. Wall of Runes, 1 mana for a 0/4 defender that when enters the battlefield scries 1. It's not even good as a filler, I think. Yeah, the very controlled dude is gonna need probably some of those to hold the board, but you can go with better options than just the 0/4 that only scries 1. There's no defender theme in the set whatsoever, so I'm only gonna give this one a 4.5. I hope I'm not gonna need to play Wall of Runes. Wishcoin Crab, 4 mana, 2/5. Now I'd rather play a Wishcoin Crab than a Wall of Runes. It's 2/5, so it's relevant because yeah, it kind of blocks the same creatures, but it also kills them in combat. It kills the 2 drops. Uh, Maybe the 5 is not that relevant. Like Wall of Runes is an 0/4, this is a 2/5. It's probably gonna be the same thing. Uh, I don't know. Actually, red green have a theme of having creatures with 4 power, so maybe that extra 1 toughness counts. Still gonna give this one just a 5. It's a filler, um, one of the better fillers, I guess. But I'm not gonna shape my draft deck around this one probably. Yeah. So we've covered all the cards. That's it with blue. Um, Thank you very much for following me through this review. I hope you enjoyed the content, and in case you didn't check, I also have a review on white, and I'm gonna upload reviews on green, red, black, multicolored artifacts and lands as well. Make sure to follow the channel if you like the content, subscribe to it, uh, hit the like button, follow my channel on Twitch, which you're going to find in the description. And yeah, cheers, thank you, have a good one, guys, bye.